Los Angeles, 1974. Amidst the bright sunlight and palm-lined streets, a boy was born in a small apartment, hidden in the middle of noisy neighborhoods. Little did people know that this child, with bright eyes and a mischievous smile, would later make the whole world remember his name. He was named Leonardo because while his mother was admiring a painting by Leonardo da Vinci in the Florence Museum, the boy kicked gently for the first time in her belly. The name seemed to be a destiny, carrying within it a desire to create an artistic spirit and a bit of loneliness like geniuses. His father, George DiCaprio, was an underground artist immersed in the world of comics and counterculture. His mother, Emmeline Indenbirken, was a German immigrant, gentle, resilient, and the only support for her young son. When Leonardo was just a few years old, his parents separated. He lived with his mother in the poor neighborhoods of East Hollywood, where just outside the door was filled with crime, violence, and despair. While many children his age had playgrounds and backyards, Leonardo only had imagination. He would sit for hours looking out the window, imagining himself in some movie where everything was prettier, brighter, and people were kinder. Ermeline worked tirelessly, from secretary to office worker to accountant, just to have enough money to send her son to better schools. She believed that if her son had the chance, he would fly far. And so it was Leonardo grew up in a strange combination of artistic freedom from his father and discipline and resilience from his mother. On one side was a world of creativity and emotion. On the other was a harsh reality where dreams can only survive if you dare to hold on to them. He grew up between two worlds, close to the lights of Hollywood, yet clearly feeling the darkness right under his feet. Every time he passed the movie studios, Leonardo looked at the giant posters and quietly told his mother, "I will be there too. One day, I will be the one standing on that billboard." He started auditioning at the age of 5 and was rejected many times because my face was not impressive enough. But he did not give up. When his friends were playing, Leonardo read the scripts and imitated the actors' expressions in front of the mirror. He believed that Hollywood, though far away, was still a door that would open if he was good enough, persistent enough, and confident enough. Many years later, when he was one of the most famous men on the planet, Leonardo looked back and said, "I was not born rich. I just had one belief, that if I was good enough, Hollywood would open the door for me." And so it was. The boy who grew up in a cramped apartment in the city of dreams that never sleeps began his journey. A journey not only to find glory, but also to find the real person behind the bright lights. Hollywood, where thousands of dreams are lit every year, and just as many are crushed. In the midst of this so-called dreamer's paradise, a young man with bright eyes and stubborn blonde hair is trying to find his place. Leonardo started with small roles on television, short films, commercials, or roles that only appeared for a few seconds on screen. No one paid attention to him, but it was in those roles that Leonardo learned the most important thing: how to make the audience believe in real emotions. In 1993, he was cast in the movie What's Eating Gilbert Grape, co-starring with Johnny Depp. The seemingly small role of a mentally handicapped boy became the first turning point. Leonardo not only acted, but also transformed into the character. Every gesture, every look made people forget that he was just an actor. That role earned him his first Oscar nomination at the age of 19, a rarity in film history. Critics called him the child prodigy of Hollywood. But Leonardo did not let that early fame make him complacent. He knew that the road ahead was long and challenging. In the following years, Leonardo chose complex, sometimes daring roles. From The Basketball Diaries, where he portrayed a drug-addicted teenager, to Romeo, Paul Juliet, Shakespeare's tragic lovers reborn in the modern world. He was not afraid to break the mold, not afraid to experiment just to find out where his own limits were. Then in 1997, the fateful moment came. James Cameron was looking for a face to play Jack Dawson in Titanic, a poor, romantic, free-hearted painter. Leonardo was almost the last choice. He almost turned down the role, fearing that a romantic story would pigeonhole him into a teen idol. But fate sometimes doesn't give anyone the right to choose. At the first audition, when Leonardo smiled and said the line, "You jump, I jump right," James Cameron knew he had found Jack Dawson, and the world was about to have a legend. When Titanic was released, everything exploded. The film was more than just a cinematic success. It was a cultural phenomenon. The name Leonardo DiCaprio was all over the world. From 15-year-old girls to middle-aged women, everyone called him Jack, the man of their dreams. But for Leonardo, behind the bright smile and the posters hanging in cinemas was a silent fear. He was afraid of being forever associated with the image of romantic prince. Fear that the world would only love Jack Dawson and no one would want to see the real Leonardo DiCaprio. In a later interview, he said, "When people started shouting my name in the street, I wasn't happy. I was scared. I realized I had lost something, my freedom." But Titanic did what no other film could. It catapulted Leonardo to the pinnacle of fame and also placed the weight of light on his shoulders. He became a global icon overnight, a symbol of love of youth, of the belief that a normal person can change his destiny. The world was infatuated with him, and Leonardo just wanted to hide. After Titanic, he turned down dozens of scripts with the same romantic formula. He remained silent for nearly 3 years, not appearing in public, not acting, just traveling, reading, and observing the world. Because he knew if he didn't do something different, he would be stuck in that role forever. And Leonardo DiCaprio, the artist born in the middle of the Hollywood dream, didn't want to be someone else's dream. He wanted to be a real person with hidden corners, fears, and depths that only those who dare to be alone can reach. After Titanic, Leonardo DiCaprio's life was never the same again. From an ambitious young actor, he became the face of the times, a global phenomenon. His name was printed on the cover of every major magazine, from Time to People, from Vanity Fair to GQ. Photos of him smiling, of him raising his hand, of him walking down the street, all became headlines. But the brighter the light, the deeper the darkness behind. Leonardo was just over 20 years old when his fame reached a peak that many people dream of never reaching in their entire lives. But it was then that he realized something painful. The world loved him, but no one really knew him. In a short interview after the success of Titanic, the reporter asked, "How does it feel to be the person the whole world loves?" Leonardo was silent for a few seconds, then softly replied, "It's strange. When everyone knows you but no one understands you, it's a very special kind of loneliness." From then on, he began to withdraw from parties, refuse dates, and avoid flashbulbs. Hollywood saw a brilliant Leonardo, but inside, he only felt trapped in the cage of his own fame. People called it the price of fame. And Leonardo understood better than anyone that price was not money, but peace. He threw himself into his work. No longer romantic, beautiful roles, but characters full of trauma and obsession. He chose The Beach, a film about a young man who escaped from society to find paradise, only to discover that paradise actually does not exist. A role, but also Leonardo's own confession. A young man trying to escape the image that the world has created for him. After The Beach, he collaborated with director Martin Scorsese, one of the monuments of cinema. From Gangs of New York, The Aviator, The Departed to Shutter Island and The Wolf of Wall Street, Leonardo gradually transformed. He is no longer Jack Dawson, the dream boy of millions. He became the real Leonardo DiCaprio, someone who dares to live, dares to hurt, dares to be misunderstood just to touch the truth in each role. Martin Scorsese once said about him, "Leonardo doesn't act. He lives in the role. Sometimes I think he's pouring his soul onto the screen." And that's true. Behind every cinematic success, Leonardo spends months in isolation, not meeting anyone, just to understand the character to the end. He read hundreds of pages of material reviewed, hours of footage, studied every look, every breath. But the deeper he delved into those roles, the more he felt distant from the real world. Because to reach the roles full of vulnerability, he was forced to make trade-offs, joy balance, and sometimes himself. There were long nights after filming. Leonardo sat alone in an empty room, looking out at the city sparkling with lights. He once wrote in his diary, "I have everything a young person can dream of, but there are nights when I feel like I have nothing left." That feeling followed him for many years. Half light, half darkness. He was a star admired by the whole world, but also a lonely man who had not yet found a place where he belonged. The media at that time did not understand. They only saw him smiling, saw him at lavish parties, walking with the most famous beauties in the world. But few people know that behind those brilliant photos is a tired Leonardo, always looking for ways to hide. He once said, "When you are famous, you can go anywhere except one place: to be yourself." That seemingly simple saying sums up his entire journey as a young man living in the spotlight, but always looking for a peaceful place. The spotlight can make him a legend, but it is also the same thing that turns him into a person imprisoned in a golden cage, where everyone can see him but no one can truly touch his heart. When Leonardo DiCaprio turned 30, the world saw him as a living icon. He had everything any actor could dream of: fame, money, power, and respect. But during those years, when Hollywood was glowing with his name, Leonardo experienced the most conflicted period of his life. He threw himself into his work relentlessly. Every film was a challenge, every character a battle with himself. From The Aviator, Blood Diamond, The Departed to Inception and The Great Gatsby, Leonardo consistently chose complex roles full of depth and many layers of emotion. He did not look for easy roles, he looked for roles that could make him hurt. Martin Scorsese once said, "Leonardo does not act to be liked. He acts to understand himself." And indeed, For nearly 2 decades after Titanic, Leonardo DiCaprio has made the world acknowledge his talent. Every year, every Oscar season, people mention his name. Every time people believe this year will be Leonardo's year. But then year after year, he still goes home empty-handed. Once, when asked about that feeling, he just smiled lightly. I don't make films to receive a golden statue. I do it because I can't live without acting. That answer is calm, but behind it are long, lonely nights. Because even though he doesn't say it, everyone knows. No artist can be completely indifferent to recognition. Leonardo was once ridiculed, became the subject of thousands of memes, social media jokes. The guy who never won an Oscar. But instead of reacting, he chose to stay silent. He wasn't angry, didn't explain. He just kept working, kept acting, kept trying. During a filming session for The Revenant, the film that would later win him the Golden Statue, the crew had to film in harsh conditions below 30 degrees Celsius. Leonardo ate raw beef liver hid in animal carcasses to keep warm and filmed for hours in a real snowstorm. He did it not to prove anything to the world, but to keep a promise to himself. If I do this, I will do it to the end. And then in 2016, after more than 20 years of waiting, what the world had been waiting for finally happened. His name was announced in the Dolby Theatre, and the Oscar goes to Leonardo DiCaprio. The whole audience stood up and applauded. That moment, which was supposed to be the most glorious victory, had something very quiet in Leonardo's eyes. He did not cheer, did not cry. He just smiled, bowed his head, and walked onto the stage to a standing ovation. He held the golden statuette in his hand, a gift that the world thought was the ultimate happiness. But when he opened his mouth to speak, he did not mention himself. He did not thank fate, nor did he talk about the journey he had taken. Instead, he spoke about the earth, about climate change, about human responsibility towards this planet. We cannot take this planet for granted. It is the greatest gift we have, and we must protect it. At that moment, the whole world fell silent, because the man who had just reached the pinnacle of fame was talking about something beyond himself. When the ceremony ended, Leonardo was seen walking off the stage, still holding the golden statuette, his face silent. The camera flashes continued. He smiled politely, but his eyes seemed to look further away, to a place where no light could reach. After that night, many people asked, "What does it feel like to achieve a lifelong dream?" He simply replied, "I am happy, but that is not the happiness I am looking for." Because throughout that journey, Leonardo understood one thing. Success does not bring fulfillment. When you reach the top, you have nothing left to prove and nowhere to go. Happiness is not in the golden statue, not in the admiration of millions of people. Happiness is something much simpler. It is having someone who truly understands you even when you are no longer on stage. And that is what Leonardo, among millions of flashbulbs, has yet to find. It was the night of February 28, 2016. All of Hollywood held its breath. The moment the presenter opened the envelope and read aloud the name the world had been waiting for more than 2 decades, the auditorium erupted, and the Oscar goes to Leonardo DiCaprio. No one sat still. The applause was long. The cheers rang out like rain after a drought. It was more than just recognition for a role in The Revenant, it was honor for a lifetime of dedication. Leonardo stood up smiling. There were no tears, just a deep look, as if he were quietly saying to himself, "Finally, I made it here." He hugged each of his friends, bowed his head in thanks, and then stepped onto the stage. Golden light enveloped him. His hand trembled slightly as he held the golden statue, a small object that carried the weight of millions of desires, sweat, and tears. But when he opened his mouth, what came out was not thanks or personal pride, not "I did it," but a solemn reminder addressed to all of humanity. Climate change is real. It is happening right now. And if we don't act, our children and grandchildren will pay the price. We must protect this planet because it is the most precious gift we have. Amidst the glittering lights, amid the endless applause, Leonardo spoke about the earth. He used the most glorious moment of his life to talk about something beyond himself. And because of that moment became immortal. When Leonardo left the stage, he did not run off to celebrate. No champagne, no all-night party. He quietly walked out past the cheering crowd across the red carpet that was bathed in the last light of the awards night. A reporter asked him, "Leonardo, how do you feel about finally receiving the golden statuette?" He paused for a moment, smiled slightly. "I think it doesn't change me. It just reminds me that I have to keep going." Then he walked away, his back blending into the Los Angeles night, calm, alone, and free. The next day, the whole world was flooded with his image. The press called it the victory of the century. Social media exploded with millions of congratulations. But amid all the noise, Leonardo DiCaprio remained silent. He didn't brag, didn't give a flurry of interviews. Instead, he flew to a faraway land, the rainforest of Sumatra, to meet with environmental activists. He said, "I don't want to be remembered as just an actor. I want the planet to be a little better off when I leave." It was the first time the world saw a new Leonardo DiCaprio. No longer the romantic on the Titanic. No longer the stubborn man in Scorsese films, but a calm, thoughtful man with a mission bigger than himself. He founded an environmental foundation, funding more than 200 climate and wildlife projects. He appeared at the United Nations as a climate change ambassador of peace, speaking before hundreds of world leaders. His voice was low, slow, and decisive. I saw the ice melting the forests, burning the dead zones. This is no longer a story of the future. It is our present. And then, in the midst of his endless travels, he was once again asked, "You have it all. Fame, money, awards, influence. What else do you lack?" He was silent for a moment, looking out at the shore where the waves gently lapped against the sand. He replied, "Perhaps peace." A simple answer, but containing all that he had experienced. Leonardo DiCaprio, the man who was applauded by the whole world, finally realized not all lights bring warmth, and not all peaks are where people find happiness. Sometimes true victory is when we understand where we want to go after the lights are turned off. Behind the lights, behind the ceremonies, behind countless frames, Leonardo DiCaprio, the man who once made the whole world stand up and applaud, chose a quiet life. No noisy social networks, no scandals, no long parties like before. He spends more time in nature, where there is no script, no director, only wind waves and the sound of distant birds. He bought a small boat, often going out to sea alone, watching the sunrise on the ocean. Some people say they saw Leonardo sitting for hours on the railing, his eyes distant as if he was talking to himself. He still acts in movies, but less. He no longer chooses flashy roles but meaningful stories, where people struggle with themselves, with greed, with loss. Those characters in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood Don't Look Up seem to be himself a man who has gone through glory and now just wants to understand what is truly worthwhile. In rare interviews, he often avoids talking about love. People attribute dozens of love affairs to him, from famous supermodels to talented actors. But no one has accompanied him to the end of the road. When asked why, Leonardo just smiled, softly replied, "I have loved, but perhaps I love this world more than anyone." An answer that is enough to make the listener silent. Because perhaps it is not that he does not want to love, but that he has devoted all his heart to other things, art, nature, and responsibility to this planet. Loneliness, that is the price of someone who has gone too far. And it seems that Leonardo understands that better than anyone. He once said in a private conversation with a close friend, "When I was young, I wanted to be seen. When I grew up, I just wanted to be understood. Now, I just want to be left alone." Perhaps that is the most honest statement he has ever shared about himself. An afternoon in Malibu. The sea is calm. The waves are lapping steadily against the shore. Leonardo DiCaprio, now in his 50s, sits on the sand. His eyes turn towards the setting sun. No more noise from Hollywood, no more camera flashes, just the sound of the wind in his hair and the salty breath on his skin. He has it all. Fame, money, roles that the world admires, and an immortal place in the history of cinema. But when people ask, "Are you happy?" Leonardo just smiles a small, tired, but gentle smile. Happiness is not something we can hold on to forever. It comes and goes, like the waves out there. The important thing is, do we recognize it when it comes by or not? That answer perhaps sums up his entire journey. From a poor boy in East Hollywood to a man standing at the pinnacle of glory. He did not seek happiness in applause, but in moments of silence, in nature, in himself. In a letter he wrote to his fans, he wrote, "I do not believe that success can buy happiness. But I believe that if we live up to our ideals, we have already touched a part of happiness." Perhaps Leonardo DiCaprio has never really found the true love that the public always expects him to have. But he has found something deeper than that, the meaning of existence. A love not for a person but for this world, where he is still trying to protect every inch of land, every breath. Because sometimes true love is not in someone's arms, but in the way we spend our whole life making the world a better place. Epilogue. In the middle of his own sky, when the night fell, the waves murmured, Leonardo stood up, looking far away to the horizon. On that face, there was no longer the light of a movie star, but the peaceful look of a man who understood himself. He spoke softly, as if speaking to the wind, to the sea, or perhaps to himself. "I have lived an imperfect life, but an honest one." And then he smiled, a smile of a man who has gone through everything and finally accepted that happiness is not a destination, but a journey. The journey of Leonardo DiCaprio, the man admired by the whole world, but still looking for true love until the end of the road. An afternoon in Malibu. Leonardo sat on the sand watching the waves roll by. He had it all, but when asked, "Are you happy?" he just smiled. Happiness comes and goes like waves. The important thing is whether we recognize it when it comes. Perhaps Leonardo DiCaprio has never found true love in a person, but he has found love in something bigger. Love for life, for people, and for this planet. Because sometimes happiness is not the destination, but the journey we go through. With all the things we have loved, lost, and become. Background music fades. In the middle of the vast sea and sky, Leonardo softly said, "I have lived an imperfect life, but a true one." And that is perhaps the most beautiful saying for a man that the world will never forget.